name is Dr. Blair Adams. I'm the Director of the Wildlife Division for Newfoundland and Labrador. I've also been an avid salmon angler for just about my entire life. Over that period, I've practiced a mix of retention and hook and release. And just about all the anglers I've met over those years are really keen to do hook and release properly. But if you're like myself, you may have not always understood what the best practices were or the best way to ensure that a salmon you did release was able to survive. The Wildlife Division has completed a comprehensive 3-year research program on hook and release in Atlantic salmon, where we tagged and radio tracked 280 salmon over that 3-year period. We've developed a set of recommendations for best practices when you're practicing hook and release. The first thing you want to do is check the status of your river. Is the river open? Is the river open to hook and release, or is it open to retention only? And most importantly, what's the current water temperature for that river? You don't want to be going out and angling with the intent to hook and release fish above 18 degrees Celsius. What our studies show was that above 18 degrees Celsius, and in particular above 20 degrees Celsius, the chance of a fish dying after release goes up pretty dramatically. So if the river's above 18 degrees C, maybe go for some retention angling, but don't go out looking to hook and release multiple fish. The key pieces of gear you want to have, one is a thermometer, and this is related to the temperature thing, a good waterproof thermometer, accurate to about 0.1 degrees Celsius. A knotless rubber dip net or sling, a good pair of pliers for removal of the hook, and of course you want to be using barbless hooks, which is required by regulation. One of the things that you may have in your current kit, but that you really shouldn't, are gloves. I know I've certainly used gloves in the past, especially cotton gloves or gloves that are made from natural fibers. A lot of anglers use those because it helps to hold on to the fish. But what we found in our study is that using those types of gloves causes significant injuries to salmon. What you want to be doing is using your bare wetted hands whenever you have to touch the fish. As I'll talk about in a few moments, you really don't want to be handling the fish in the first place. You want to keep them in the water, not touch them. But if you do have to touch the fish, use your bare wetted hands. First, let's talk about playing the fish. Really, you want to play the fish out until it's partially exhausted. You don't want to bring the salmon in too fast. If you bring the salmon in too fast, when you're trying to handle the fish during the release, they can be very high energy, and it greatly increases the probability that salmon being injured. You don't want to play the salmon too long. That exhausts the fish, and they may get to a point where they cannot recover, and it's not safe to release them, or they have a low chance of surviving when you release them. So you want to partially exhaust the fish, and based on the research that we did with 280 salmon, what we found is the ideal time to hook, bring in, land, and release a grilse on Newfoundland rivers is about 4 to 6 minutes. So when you bring the fish in, your goal is to keep the fish in the water during the entire release process and to not handle the fish with your hands. So ideally you want to bring it in, dip the fish in your knotless rubber net, use the pliers to remove the hook, keeping the fish in the water as much as you can. Hold the fish in the net in some flowing current until it has a chance to recover, and then release the fish from the net so it can swim free. It's also possible, if you're able to do it, to bring the fish in and remove the fly using the pliers without dipping the fish at all and allowing it to swim free. This is more challenging, but it's also an effective release technique. Now sometimes, despite our best efforts, a fish can become injured. Whether the initial hooking was a foul hook and did damage to the gills, or during the release process the fish did something quite unexpected and injured itself. And when you have an obvious injury on the fish, if you have a tag and are able to retain that salmon, you should. It's the responsible thing to do, even if you weren't intending to utilize your tag. If you know that that fish is injured, he's got a much bigger chance of mortality when it's released. Please be responsible and tag the salmon. So thank you very much. Good luck with your angling this summer. I wish you tight lines, and if we're lucky, maybe we'll run into each other in one of this province's beautiful rivers.